I stood in the empty living room of the downtown condo, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and listened to my husband discuss getting rid of me in a language he thought I couldn't understand. Este es perfecta para cuando me deshaga de ella, Richard said to the realtor, his voice casual as he gestured around the modern space. This one is perfect for when I get rid of her. Isabella Rodriguez, the realtor showing us properties that morning, smiled politely and nodded. She was a petite woman in her 30s, wearing a professional red blazer and carrying a leather portfolio. Her dark eyes flicked to me briefly, perhaps checking if I comprehended, but I kept my face blank and pleasant. I had been doing that for 15 years. La otra ya sabe del lugar, Richard continued, running his hand along the granite kitchen counter. The other one already knows about the place. The other one. Not even a name. Just another woman waiting in the wings while I played the role of devoted wife. My stomach twisted, but I maintained my composure. I walked to the window and looked out at the city below, my reflection ghostly in the glass. A 42-year-old woman in a beige dress Richard had picked out last week. Conservative length, neutral color, nothing that drew attention. That was how he liked me. Invisible. Tu esposa no entiende español, verdad? Isabella asked him quietly. Your wife doesn't understand Spanish, right? Para nada, Richard laughed. Took French in school. Useless language. Not at all. My grandmother would have been furious to hear him say that. She was the one who taught me Spanish during summers at her house in San Antonio. But Richard never bothered to ask about my grandmother or what she taught me. He never asked much about anything concerning me. Entonces cuando firmes los papeles del fideicomiso modificado, será tuyo to do, Isabella said, lowering her voice further. So when you sign the modified trust papers, everything will be yours. Modified trust papers. My hands trembled slightly as I clasped them behind my back. We had set up a trust 5 years ago for our assets. Richard had told me it was standard estate planning. I signed whatever he put in front of me because that was what I always did. Dos semanas más, Richard replied. 2 more weeks. 2 weeks until what? Until he served me with divorce papers? Until the trust modification went through and locked me out of everything I helped build? This space has excellent light, I said aloud in English, my voice steady despite the panic clawing at my chest. The kitchen is beautiful. Richard walked over and put his arm around my waist. The gesture looked affectionate, but I felt the possessiveness in it. Ownership, not love. I think it's too modern for us, honey, he said dismissively. Let's keep looking. But he had just told Isabella in Spanish that it was perfect. Perfect for his new life. His life without me. Hey, tres dormitorios, Isabella said, switching to English for my benefit. The master suite has a walk-in closet and ensuite bathroom. Would you like to see? Yes, please, I said. We followed her down a hallway. Richard checked his phone, already distracted. He was always distracted lately. Late nights at the office. Weekend conferences. A wife becomes background noise after 15 years. The master bedroom was spacious, painted a soft gray. I could see Richard living here with someone else. Someone younger, probably. Someone who laughed at his jokes and didn't know yet how controlling he could be. El closet es amplio, Isabella said, opening double doors to reveal the walk-in space. The closet is spacious. Perfecto para sus cosas, Richard muttered. Ala no tiene mucho de todos modos. Perfect for her things. She doesn't have much anyway. That stung more than it should have. He was right. I didn't have much. He had systematically reduced my life to almost nothing over the years. My friends had fallen away one by one, deemed too loud, too opinionated, too much of a bad influence. My hobbies were impractical. My opinions were cute but ultimately ignored. Even my clothes were chosen by him. I walked into the closet and ran my hand along the empty shelves. This space held the shape of someone's future life. Just not mine. What do you think, Lydia? Richard asked from the doorway. I turned to face him. He looked handsome in his navy suit, his blonde hair perfectly styled. He worked out 5 times a week and it showed. Other women probably found him attractive. Maybe the other one did. It's nice, I said simply. Just nice. He raised an eyebrow. You're hard to please lately. Was I? I couldn't remember the last time he had actually asked my opinion on something that mattered. But pointing that out would lead to a lecture about being ungrateful, so I smiled instead. I mean, it's lovely, I corrected. Very modern. Hey, dos baños adicionales, Isabella interjected, sensing the tension. And a balcony with city views. We followed her back through the living room to a balcony that overlooked downtown. The March wind was cool but not unpleasant. I stepped outside and breathed deeply, letting the air fill my lungs. Dos semanas, Richard repeated quietly to Isabella behind me, thinking I couldn't hear. 2 weeks. I gripped the balcony railing and looked down at the street below. People moving through their lives, unaware that mine was ending. Or maybe it wasn't ending. Maybe it was finally beginning. Because Richard didn't know something crucial about me. He didn't know that I understood every single word he had said. Every cruel comment, every plan, every dismissal. He thought I was the same naive 27-year-old he had married, the girl who thought love meant surrendering yourself completely to another person. But I had learned Spanish from a woman who escaped an abusive marriage with nothing but her children and her dignity. My grandmother taught me more than vocabulary and grammar. She taught me that staying small doesn't keep you safe. It just makes you disappear. I turned around and smiled at Richard. Should we see the other bedrooms? Sí, por supuesto, Isabella said, gesturing down another hallway. As we walked through the rest of the condo, I made mental notes. Not about the property but about everything I needed to do. I had 2 weeks before Richard put whatever plan he had into motion. 2 weeks to figure out how to save myself. We finished the viewing and stepped into the elevator. Isabella handed Richard her card. Call me when you're ready to make an offer, she said in English. I will, Richard replied, then added in Spanish, pronto. Muy pronto. Very soon. The elevator descended and I watched the numbers light up as we dropped floor by floor. My old life was ending, but I was the only one who knew it yet. And unlike Richard, I wasn't going to wait for someone else to decide my fate. I was going to take it into my own hands. The car ride home felt like sitting in a sealed container. Richard drove his black Mercedes through afternoon traffic while I stared out the passenger window, my purse clutched in my lap like a shield. That last property was interesting, Richard said casually, changing lanes without signaling. Though I still think we need more space. 3 bedrooms isn't enough for entertaining. Entertaining who? The other woman? I bit the inside of my cheek and nodded. Whatever you think is best. That's my girl, he said, patting my knee briefly before returning his hand to the steering wheel. Always so agreeable. My girl. Like I was a pet. A well-trained animal that performed on command. I looked at his profile as he drove. Strong jaw, straight nose, the kind of face that looked trustworthy in business meetings. But I knew the truth now. I had always known parts of it, I suppose, but hearing him discuss disposing of me like unwanted furniture made everything crystalline clear. We stopped at a red light. A woman in the crosswalk pushed a stroller, her other hand holding a toddler's hand. I wondered if she was happy. If her husband spoke about her with affection when she wasn't around, or if he too was planning an exit strategy in a language he thought she didn't speak. You've been quiet today, Richard observed, accelerating as the light changed. Just thinking, I said. About what? About how I've wasted 15 years of my life with a man who sees me as an obstacle rather than a partner. About how stupid I've been to trust you completely. About how I'm going to leave before you get the chance to destroy me. About redecorating the guest room, I lied smoothly. Maybe a blue color scheme. Sure, whatever, Richard said, already dismissing the topic. My interests only mattered when they aligned with his plans. We pulled into our driveway 20 minutes later. The house was a large colonial in a wealthy suburb, 5 bedrooms we barely used, a lawn maintained by professionals. It looked like success from the outside. Most prisons did. Richard's phone rang as we entered the house. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted, softened. I need to take this, he said, walking toward his home office. Work thing. Work thing. Right. Está bien, Carino. Sí, mañana por la noche, I heard him say before he closed the office door. It's fine, darling. Yes, tomorrow night. Carino. Darling. A term of endearment he had stopped using with me years ago. I walked to our bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed we had shared for 15 years. The room was decorated in shades of gray and white, sterile and cold. Richard's aesthetic choice, of course. I had wanted yellow, something bright and cheerful, but he said it was too childish. My hands were shaking now that I was alone. I pressed them flat against my thighs and took deep breaths, trying to steady myself. I couldn't fall apart yet. I needed to think clearly. What had my grandmother always said? Mija cuando un hombre te muestra quien es, creo la primera vez. When a man shows you who he is, believe him the first time. Richard had shown me who he was countless times over the years. I just kept making excuses for him. He was stressed. He was focused on his career. He loved me in his own way. But love doesn't plot your disposal in a foreign language while holding your hand. I stood up and walked to my closet. Rows of beige, gray and black clothing hung in neat order. Nothing bright, nothing bold, nothing that expressed any personality. I pulled out a green blouse I had bought years ago, stuffed in the back where Richard wouldn't notice. I had worn it once and he said it made me look like I was trying too hard. I never wore it again. I held the fabric against my chest and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked tired. Older than 42. When had I stopped seeing myself? A sound from downstairs pulled me from my thoughts. Richard was laughing, the phone still pressed to his ear. Happy sounds from a man who was planning to betray me. I hung the green blouse back in the closet and changed into comfortable clothes. Then I walked quietly down the hallway to Richard's office. The door was closed but not locked. It never was. He didn't think I had any reason to invade his privacy. I pressed my ear against the door, listening. "No, she doesn't suspect anything," Richard was saying in English now. "She's completely clueless. By the time she realizes what's happening, everything will be locked up tight." Silence as the other person spoke. I know. 2 weeks and we're free. Then we can finally be together properly." More silence. "The trust modification is genius. My lawyer assured me it's completely legal. Once I sign those papers, everything transfers to a new account she can't access. The house, the investments, all of it." My heart pounded so hard I thought he might hear it through the door. "She'll get whatever the court mandates for spousal support, but that's nothing compared to what I'm protecting. And with the prenup we signed, she can't claim much anyway." Prenup. We had signed one before the wedding, but Richard assured me it was just standard procedure. I never read it carefully. I trusted him. What a fool I had been. "All right, see you tomorrow night," Richard said, his voice warm. "I love you too. I love you too." 3 words he hadn't said to me in at least 3 years. I moved quickly away from the door and down the stairs to the kitchen. By the time Richard emerged from his office 10 minutes later, I was chopping vegetables for dinner, looking exactly like the domestic, oblivious wife he thought he had. "Smells good," he said, loosening his tie. "What are we having?" "Chicken and vegetables," I replied, keeping my eyes on the cutting board. "Great. I have some paperwork to finish before dinner. Call me when it's ready." He left without another word. I listened to his footsteps retreat back to his office, then I set down the knife and leaned against the counter. Think, Lydia. Think. I needed documentation. Evidence. Proof of everything he was planning. But more than that, I needed money and a place to go. I couldn't just leave with nothing. He would destroy me financially and legally if I wasn't prepared. After dinner, while Richard watched television in the living room, I told him I was going to take a bath. Instead, I went to his office. My hands trembled as I opened file cabinets as quietly as possible. I found folders labeled trust documents, investment accounts, property holdings. I took my phone from my pocket and began photographing every page. Bank statements showing accounts I didn't know existed. Investment portfolios worth hundreds of thousands. Property deeds with only his name listed, even though we bought them during our marriage. A folder labeled legal contained the prenup from 15 years ago. I photographed every page, my anger growing with each image. The agreement was heavily weighted in his favor, signed when I was young and in love and believed marriage meant partnership. The last folder I found was labeled dissolution. Inside were letters between Richard and a divorce attorney, dated from 6 months ago. 6 months he had been planning this. The attorney's letter outlined the strategy. Modify the trust to protect assets. File for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. Use the prenup to minimize spousal support. Clean, efficient, calculated. I photographed everything, my phone's camera clicking softly in the quiet office. "Lydia?" Richard called from downstairs. "Everything okay?" I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. "Yes, just finishing up," I called back, my voice somehow steady. I quickly closed the folders and file cabinets exactly as I had found them, then slipped out of the office and into the bathroom. I turned on the faucet, letting water fill the tub, and sat on the closed toilet lid. My hands were shaking again. I had evidence now. Proof of his plans, his hidden assets, his betrayal. But what was I supposed to do with it? I looked at my phone, scrolling through the photographs I had taken. Each one was a piece of the puzzle. Each one was ammunition. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. "Las mujeres fuertes no esperan ser salvadas. Se salvan a sí mismas." Strong women don't wait to be saved. They save themselves. I deleted the photos from my phone's main storage and uploaded them to a cloud account Richard didn't know existed. Then I opened my email and sent the entire collection to myself at an old email address from college, one I hadn't used in years. The bath water was getting cold, but I didn't care. I had just taken the first real step toward freedom, and despite the fear coursing through my veins, I felt something else too. I felt alive. Tomorrow I would start making calls. I would find a lawyer, access whatever money I could, and build an escape plan. Richard thought he had 2 weeks to finalize his trap. He had no idea I was already planning my way out. I woke up at 6 the next morning before Richard's alarm went off. He was snoring softly beside me, one arm thrown over his head, completely at peace. How could someone planning such destruction sleep so soundly? I slipped out of bed and went downstairs to make coffee. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock in the hallway. Normal sounds of a normal morning in a life that was anything but normal anymore. While the coffee brewed, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. Richard never came downstairs before 7, which gave me an hour. I had thought about this all night, staring at the ceiling while he slept, formulating a plan. First, I needed a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but someone who specialized in difficult divorces. Someone who could help me understand my rights and protect what little I might be entitled to. I searched online and found several names, but one stood out. Patricia Holmes, a family law attorney with excellent reviews and a reputation for fighting hard for her clients. Her website showed a woman in her 50s with gray hair and intelligent eyes. "Protecting your future when your marriage ends," her tagline read. I copied her office number into my phone and sent an email requesting a consultation. Then I created a new folder on my laptop labeled Recipe Collection, and moved all the photographs of Richard's documents into it. If he ever checked my computer, he would never think to look there. The coffee finished brewing and I poured a cup, adding cream and sugar. Richard liked his black, no sugar. We were different in so many small ways that had grown into canyons over the years. Next, I needed to think about money. I had a joint checking account with Richard, but he monitored it closely. Any large withdrawal would raise questions. I needed access to funds he didn't control. Then I remembered my grandmother's trust. When Abuela died 8 years ago, she left me a trust fund. It wasn't enormous, but it was something. Richard had been dismissive of it at the time, saying it was probably barely enough for a nice vacation. He never asked about it again, and I never mentioned it. The trust was in my name only, set up before I married Richard. I opened a new browser window and searched for the trust administrator's contact information. The law firm that managed it was based in San Antonio. I found a name, Jerome Washington, and an email address. "Dear Mr. Washington," I typed. "My name is Lydia Collins, formerly Lydia Reyes. My grandmother, Carmen Reyes, set up a trust for me approximately 12 years ago. I need to access information about this trust and discuss my options for withdrawal. Please contact me at this email address at your earliest convenience." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Richard's footsteps sounded overhead. He was awake. I closed my laptop and sipped my coffee, composing my face into the pleasant mask I wore every day. He came downstairs 15 minutes later, showered and dressed in a gray suit. "Morning," he said, pouring coffee. "Sleep well?" "Fine," I replied. "You?" "Great. Big day at the office today. Might be late." Late meant dinner with her. The other one. Tomorrow night, he had said yesterday. But now it was today. "I'll keep dinner easy then," I said. "Perfect." He kissed the top of my head absently, a gesture without meaning, and left with his briefcase and coffee. I waited until his car pulled out of the driveway before I allowed myself to breathe fully. Then I grabbed my laptop and phone and got to work. Patricia Holmes's office called me back within 2 hours. "Miss Collins? This is Diane from Patricia Holmes's office. Ms. Holmes has an opening tomorrow at 2 if you're available." "Yes," I said immediately. "I'll be there." "Wonderful. Please bring any documentation you have regarding your marriage, assets, and any prenuptial agreements. Also, we require a consultation fee of $300. $300. I had maybe $500 in an old savings account Richard didn't monitor. "That's fine. Thank you." After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and made a list. I needed to be organized, methodical. Richard had been planning this for 6 months. I had less than 2 weeks. My list: meet with Patricia Holmes. Access grandmother's trust. Find a place to live. Document everything. Protect myself. That last one was vague but important. I didn't know what Richard would do when he realized I was leaving. Would he be relieved? Angry? Would he try to manipulate me into staying? My phone buzzed with an email notification. Jerome Washington had replied already. "Dear Miss Collins, I remember your grandmother well. She was a remarkable woman. I'd be happy to discuss the trust with you. The current balance is approximately $180,000. Please call my office to set up a phone appointment. I read the email 3 times. $180,000. Richard had said it was barely enough for a nice vacation. Had he lied, or had he never actually asked about the amount? Either way, he had dismissed it as unimportant, which meant he hadn't factored it into his plans. This was my escape fund. My starting over money. I called Jerome Washington's office immediately and set up a phone appointment for later that afternoon. Then I allowed myself a moment to feel something like hope. The rest of the morning I moved through the house like a ghost, looking at everything differently. The furniture Richard had chosen. The paint colors he preferred. The art on the walls that he bought without asking my opinion. None of it was mine. None of it ever had been. I went to our bedroom and opened the closet. All those beige and gray clothes. I pulled out the green blouse again, and this time I put it on. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. But she looked more alive than I had felt in years. At 3 o'clock I called Jerome Washington. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm and professional. "Miss Collins, good to hear from you. Your grandmother spoke of you often." "Did she?" My throat tightened. Abuela had died while I was already deep into my marriage with Richard, already shrinking into nothing. "She did. She worried about you, actually. Said you had married a man who didn't see your light." Tears pricked my eyes. She was right. "I'm sorry to hear that. But I'm glad you're reaching out about the trust. Your grandmother set it up specifically so you would always have resources independent of anyone else. She was very clear about that. Can I access it?" "Absolutely. You're the sole beneficiary. I can transfer funds to any account you designate. How much do you need?" "All of it," I said firmly. "I need all of it." There was a pause. "Are you in a safe situation, Ms. Collins?" "For now. But I'm leaving my marriage and I need to protect myself financially." "I understand. Your grandmother would be proud of you for taking that step. I'll need you to open a new bank account in only your name, then provide me with the account information. I can have the full amount transferred within 3 business days." 3 business days. I could do this. "Thank you, Mr. Washington. Thank you so much. It's my honor to help you, Miss Collins. Your grandmother was a special woman. She'd want you to be free and happy." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house and let myself cry. Not sad tears, but something else. Relief, maybe. Or grief for all the years I had lost. But then I wiped my face and got back to work. That afternoon, I drove to a bank across town, one Richard never used, and opened a checking account in only my name. The bank representative was a young woman with kind eyes who asked no questions when I said I needed it for personal use. I provided the account information to Jerome Washington via secure email. Then I drove home and made dinner just like always. Richard came home at 9, smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine. "Sorry I'm late," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Client dinner ran long." "It's fine," I said. "I saved you a plate." He ate while scrolling through his phone, barely looking at me. I watched him from across the table and felt nothing. No love, no anger, no sadness. Just a cold certainty that I was doing the right thing. Tomorrow I would meet with Patricia Holmes. I would start building my legal strategy. I would become someone Richard never expected me to be, a woman who fought back. That night, lying in bed next to him, I thought about the condo viewing. About hearing him discuss getting rid of me. About the casual cruelty in his voice. "Dos semanas," he had said. 2 weeks. But he wouldn't get 2 weeks. Because I was already 5 steps ahead, moving in the shadows he had created around me, using the invisibility he had forced on me as my greatest weapon. Richard thought he knew me. He thought I was weak, passive, helpless. He was about to learn how wrong he had been. Patricia Holmes's office was in a professional building downtown, all glass and steel. I arrived 15 minutes early, my hands sweating as I carried a folder full of printed documents from Richard's office. The waiting room had comfortable blue chairs and a coffee station. I poured myself water instead, my stomach too unsettled for caffeine. A receptionist with bright red lipstick smiled at me. "Miss Collins? Patricia will see you now." Patricia Holmes was exactly like her photograph. Gray hair pulled back, intelligent brown eyes, a maroon blazer that looked both professional and powerful. She stood when I entered and offered her hand. "Lydia, please sit down." Her office had large windows overlooking the city. Plants on the windowsill. Diplomas on the walls. Everything about the space felt competent and safe. "Tell me what's going on," Patricia said, settling into her chair with a notepad. I took a breath and told her everything. The condo viewing. The Spanish conversation. What I had overheard in Richard's office. The trust modification. The divorce attorney. All of it spilled out in a rush of words. Patricia took notes, her expression neutral but focused. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. "First, I want you to know that you did exactly the right thing by documenting everything," she said. "Second, your husband is engaging in what we call financial infidelity and potentially fraudulent asset concealment. Third, you have more power in this situation than you realize." "I do. Absolutely. Texas is a community property state. Everything acquired during your marriage belongs equally to both of you, regardless of whose name is on the title. The trust modification he's attempting? If it's designed to hide marital assets before a divorce, that's illegal." Hope fluttered in my chest. "So he can't just take everything?" "No, he cannot. And the fact that you have documentation of his plans will help us considerably." Patricia leaned forward. "But I need to be honest with you, Lydia. This will be a fight. Your husband has resources and he's been planning this. We need to move quickly." "How quickly?" "Ideally, you should file for divorce before he does. That way we control the narrative and can request injunctions preventing him from moving assets." "Can you do that?" "Could I? File for divorce? End my marriage officially?" The thought terrified me and thrilled me in equal measure. "Yes," I said. "I can do that." "Good." Patricia made more notes. "I'll need copies of everything you photographed. Bank statements, property deeds, the prenup, his communications with the divorce attorney, all of it. I'll also need information about your own assets and income." I told her about my grandmother's trust. Her eyebrows rose. $180,000 that's solely in your name? That's excellent. You can't touch that money. It was yours before the marriage. Really? Really? That money is separate property, not community property. It's your safety net. Patricia smiled for the first time. Your grandmother was smart to set that up for you. We spent the next hour going through details. My lack of employment outside the home. The prenup that limited my spousal support. The properties Richard had purchased in only his name during our marriage. The prenup is problematic, Patricia admitted, but not insurmountable. You signed it 15 years ago under different circumstances. We can argue it's unconscionable given how the marriage actually played out. Plus, community property laws still apply regardless of the prenup. You're entitled to half of everything earned and acquired during the marriage. Half of everything? I couldn't quite believe it. Half of everything. The house, the retirement accounts, the investment portfolios, all of it. The prenup might limit temporary spousal support, but it can't eliminate your right to your share of marital assets. By the time I left Patricia's office, I had a plan. We would file for divorce in 1 week. Patricia would request a temporary restraining order preventing Richard from moving or hiding assets. We would begin the discovery process to uncover everything he owned. "One more thing," Patricia said as I stood to leave. "Do you have a safe place to go when you serve him with papers?" "I'm working on that." "Work quickly. Men like your husband don't react well to losing control. I want you physically safe when this happens." I drove home thinking about safety. About the moment Richard would realize I was leaving. Would he be angry? Vindictive? Would he try to hurt me? The thought sent ice through my veins. But I couldn't back down now. I had come too far. That evening I searched online for apartments. Small, affordable places across town. I found one that looked promising, a one-bedroom unit in a quiet neighborhood. The rent was reasonable and they had immediate availability. I called and scheduled a viewing for the next day. Richard came home at 6, earlier than expected. "Hey," he said, kissing my cheek. "How was your day?" "Fine. Quiet." I had become an expert liar, matching his deception with my own. "Good. Listen, I need you to sign some papers tonight. Just standard trust stuff, updates to our estate planning." My blood turned cold. "What kind of updates?" "Nothing major. The lawyer said we should modernize some language. I'll explain it all, but I need your signature by tomorrow." The trust modification. He was moving faster than I expected. "Can I read them first?" I asked carefully. Richard's expression flickered with impatience. "Of course, but it's pretty standard legal language. You know how these things are." "I'd still like to read them." "Sure, whatever." He pulled papers from his briefcase and set them on the kitchen counter. "Just let me know when you're done. I need to make some calls." He left the room and I stared at the documents. They were labeled Trust Amendment and Restatement. I photographed every page with my phone, then sat down to actually read them. The language was dense and confusing, full of legal terms I didn't understand. But I understood enough. The amendment transferred administrative control of the trust entirely to Richard. It redesignated assets as his separate property. It effectively locked me out of everything. And there, on the last page, was a line for my signature. My hands shook as I set the papers down. He actually expected me to sign this. To willingly hand over everything. I thought about my grandmother. About the trust she had left me. About Patricia Holmes and the divorce papers we would file in 1 week. Richard. I called out. He appeared in the doorway. Done reading? I want to have a lawyer look at these before I sign. Just to make sure I understand everything. His jaw tightened. That's not necessary, Lydia. I've already had our lawyer review them. Your lawyer? I corrected. I'd like my own lawyer to review them too. Why are you being difficult about this? His voice had an edge now. I'm not being difficult. I just want to understand what I'm signing. You don't trust me? He stepped closer, his presence suddenly intimidating in a way it hadn't been before. Or maybe it always had been and I was only now seeing it clearly. I'd just feel better if I had someone explain it to me, I said, keeping my voice calm. Richard stared at me for a long moment. Then he sighed, running his hand through his hair. Fine. Whatever. But I need this handled by next week at the latest. The lawyer said timing is important. I understand. He grabbed the papers and walked away. I heard his office door close firmly. Not quite a slam, but close. I stood in the kitchen, my heart racing. That was the first time I had openly pushed back against him in years. The first time I had questioned his decisions. And his response had been immediate anger masked as frustration. This was who he was. This was who he had always been. I had just been too compliant to see it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that needed to happen. The apartment viewing tomorrow. The divorce filing next week. The moment I would walk out of this house for the last time. Richard snored beside me, unaware that his world was about to change. Unaware that I was no longer the passive, agreeable woman he thought he married. I got up quietly and went downstairs. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark and opened my laptop. The cloud folder with all the photographs I had taken of Richard's documents. The email from Jerome Washington about my grandmother's trust. The contact information for Patricia Holmes. All the pieces of my escape plan, laid out like a map to freedom. My phone buzzed with a late-night email. It was from Brenda Thompson, my college friend I had reconnected with last week. We had been close once, before Richard systematically cut me off from all my friends. Hey girl, so good to hear from you, she wrote. I've missed you. Want to grab coffee sometime? I'd love to catch up properly. Yes. I typed back immediately. I would love that. Are you free tomorrow afternoon? Her response came quickly. Absolutely. Tell me when and where. I sent her the address of a coffee shop near the apartment I was viewing. Then I closed my laptop and went back upstairs. Tomorrow I would see a place that could be my new home. I would reconnect with a friend who knew me before I disappeared into this marriage. I would take another step toward freedom. In 1 week I would file for divorce. And Richard would never see it coming. The apartment was perfect in its simplicity. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, a living area with windows facing east. The walls were white and empty, waiting for someone to fill them with life. It's available immediately, the property manager, Denise Park, told me. She was in her 40s, efficient and kind. First month, last month, and security deposit. We can have you moved in by the weekend if you'd like. I'd like that very much, I said. Great. I'll need proof of income or assets, standard application process. I have a trust fund I can use for payment. Would bank statements work? Absolutely. I filled out the application right there, sitting at Denise's desk in the rental office. My hands were steady now. I was becoming someone who made decisions, who took action. We'll process this today and call you by tomorrow, Denise said. But between you and me, your application looks solid. I think you'll be approved. I left feeling lighter than I had in weeks. This small apartment would be mine. My space, my choices, my life. Coffee with Brenda was at 3. I arrived early and ordered tea, choosing a table near the window. When Brenda walked in 15 minutes later, I almost cried at the sight of her. She looked exactly the same. Long brown hair, bright smile, energy that filled a room. She had been my best friend in college, back when I was studying art history and dreaming about working in museums. Lydia. She hugged me tightly. Oh my gosh, it's been way too long. I know. I'm sorry I've been so distant. Don't apologize. Life happens. She sat down across from me. But I'm really glad you reached out. I've missed you. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about her life, her job managing a boutique marketing firm, Her recent breakup with a boyfriend who didn't appreciate her. I listened and laughed and felt like a person again. So what about you? Brenda finally asked. How's married life? I took a breath. This was the moment. I could keep pretending everything was fine or I could tell the truth. I'm getting divorced, I said. Brenda's eyes widened. Oh, Lydia. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I am actually. Or I will be. I told her everything, not holding back. The control, the isolation, the Spanish conversation, Richard's plans. All of it. Brenda reached across the table and took my hand. That's terrible. I never liked him, you know. I tried to tell you back then, but you were so in love. I know. I should have listened. Hey, no. You loved him. That's not wrong. He's the one who turned out to be awful. She squeezed my hand. What can I do to help? Actually, I was hoping you might. I'm moving into an apartment next week. I'll need help getting some furniture and basics set up. Of course. I'm totally there. Do you need money? A place to stay while you transition? I have money, thankfully. My grandmother left me a trust fund Richard didn't know about. Smart woman, your grandmother. The smartest. We made plans for the following weekend. Brenda would help me move and set up my apartment. She also offered to be there when I served Richard with divorce papers, in case I needed support. You don't have to face him alone, she said firmly. You've been alone in this marriage long enough. That night at home I felt energized despite my nerves. Denise called the next morning to tell me I was approved for the apartment. I could sign the lease and get keys on Friday. 3 days away. Then the following Tuesday, Patricia would file divorce papers. By next Wednesday Richard would be served. Everything was moving so fast, but it felt right. Like a dam breaking, releasing years of stagnant water. I spent the next few days quietly preparing. I went through the house and mentally cataloged what I wanted to take. Not much actually. Most of the furniture was Richard's taste. The art, the decorations, the expensive items, none of it felt like mine. What I wanted were my personal things. My books. My photographs from before the marriage. The few items I had kept from my grandmother. Some kitchen supplies. My clothes, even though most of them I planned to donate. I ordered basic furniture online to be delivered to the apartment next week. A bed, a small couch, a table and chairs. Simple things to start my new life. Thursday evening, Richard came home and dropped his briefcase heavily on the counter. Did you have a lawyer look at those trust papers yet? Still working on it, I said evenly. Lydia, this is getting ridiculous. They're simple documents. Then another week won't matter. His eyes narrowed. What's gotten into you lately? You've been different. Different how? I don't know. Less agreeable. More stubborn. Maybe I'm just thinking for myself for once. The words came out sharper than I intended. Richard stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. Excuse me? Nothing. Forget it. No, what did you mean by that? He moved closer, his body language aggressive. I took a step back. I just meant I want to understand what I'm signing. That's reasonable. It's insulting. You're my wife. You should trust me. Trust. The word felt like a joke. I do trust you, I lied. I just want to be informed. Richard studied me for a long moment, then shook his head. I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to figure it out. This attitude isn't acceptable. He walked away, leaving me standing in the kitchen. My hands were shaking again, but from anger this time, not fear. This attitude isn't acceptable. Like I was a child being scolded. Like I didn't have the right to question anything. 5 more days. I just needed to hold it together for 5 more days. Friday morning, I drove to the rental office and signed the lease. Denise handed me keys to my new apartment with a smile. Congratulations on your new home. Thank you, I said, and I meant it more than she could know. I drove to the apartment and stood in the empty space. Afternoon light streamed through the windows. The air smelled clean and full of possibility. This was mine. My home. My fresh start. I sat on the floor in the empty living room and called Patricia Holmes. I'm ready, I told her. File the papers. Are you sure? You're in a safe place. I'm signing a lease on an apartment. I'm moving out before he's served. Smart. Very smart. I heard Patricia typing. I'll file on Monday. We'll serve him at his office on Wednesday. That gives you time to move your essentials out. Thank you, Patricia. You're doing the right thing, Lydia. It takes courage to leave a situation like this. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my new apartment and felt something unfamiliar. It took me a moment to identify the feeling. That weekend, I told Richard the first was going to visit a friend for a few days. He barely looked up from his laptop. Sure, whatever. I'll be busy with work anyway. Instead, I spent Saturday and Sunday moving boxes to my new apartment. Small loads in my car, things Richard wouldn't notice missing. Books, clothes, personal items. Brenda came over and helped, bringing coffee and encouragement. "This is so exciting," she said as we arranged my books on a shelf. "Your whole life is about to change." "I know. I'm terrified." "That's normal. But you're also brave as hell." By Sunday night, my apartment had the basics. A bed with new sheets. Towels in the bathroom. Dishes in the kitchen. A small couch in the living room. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Monday morning, Patricia called. "Papers are filed. Service is scheduled for Wednesday at 1 p.m. at his office." "Where will you be?" "At my apartment. With my friend." "Good. Stay there. Don't answer calls from him. Let him call your attorney." "That's me." "Okay. Lydia? You're doing great. Just a little bit longer." Tuesday I went home one last time. Richard was at work. I walked through the house and felt nothing. No nostalgia, no regret. This place had never been a home. Just a beautiful prison. I took the last of my grandmother's things, including a photograph of her I loved. She was young in the picture, maybe 30, standing in front of her house in San Antonio with her head held high. "Gracias, abuela," I whispered. "Poor to do. Thank you for everything." I left my key on the kitchen counter. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing to say that the divorce papers wouldn't say for me. As I drove away, I didn't look back. Wednesday at 1 p.m. I sat in my apartment with Brenda. My phone was off. Brenda held my hand. "He's being served right now," I said. "Good. He deserves everything that's coming. What if he tries to hurt me? Then we call the police." "But he won't. Men like him are cowards. They're only powerful when they think they have control." At 2 p.m., Patricia called the apartment phone. "It's done. He's been served." "And Lydia?" "He's furious. His attorney called me within 5 minutes. They want to talk settlement." "Already?" "Already. He knows you have documentation of his plans. He knows he's caught. He's going to try to control the narrative now." "What do I do?" "Nothing. You let me handle it. You stay safe and let me fight this battle. That's what you're paying me for." After Patricia hung up, I sat on my couch and cried. Not sad tears, but release. The hardest part was over. I had actually done it. I had left. Brenda hugged me while I cried, and when I finally stopped, she smiled. "You know what we need? Pizza and a movie. A celebration." "A celebration?" "Hell yes. You just took your life back. That deserves pizza." So we ordered pizza and watched a movie on Brenda's laptop, sitting in my small apartment that felt bigger than the mansion I had left behind. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt free. The first night in my apartment was strange. The bed was new and unfamiliar. The sounds were different from the house, city noises instead of suburban silence. But I slept better than I had in months. I woke up Thursday morning to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. No Richard beside me. No tension in the air. Just quiet and possibility. My phone was still off. I turned it on carefully, my heart racing. 23 missed calls from Richard. 15 text messages. 4 voicemails. I didn't read or listen to any of them. Instead, I forwarded all of it to Patricia and blocked Richard's number. Patricia called within an hour. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" "Scared but good." "What did his messages say?" "The usual. Anger, confusion, demands that you come home and discuss this like adults. Then pleading, then more anger. Classic control cycle." "What happens now?" "Now we negotiate. His attorney knows we have evidence of his attempt to hide assets. They know a judge won't look kindly on that. They want to settle quickly before this gets ugly in court." "Do you think we should settle?" "Depends on the offer. Let me handle the negotiation. You focus on taking care of yourself." After Patricia hung up, I sat at my small kitchen table and made a list. Things I needed to do: find a job eventually, reconnect with more old friends, figure out who I was outside of being Richard's wife. That last one felt enormous and terrifying. Brenda came over that afternoon with groceries. "You need food in this apartment," she declared, unpacking bags in my kitchen. "Real food, not just coffee and crackers. You didn't have to do this." "I know. But you've spent 15 years having someone control you. Let me help without controlling." "There's a difference." She was right. Richard's control had been about power. Brenda's help was about friendship. We spent the afternoon setting up my apartment properly. Hanging curtains, organizing my closet, making the space feel like home. At one point, Brenda pulled out the green blouse I had hidden in the back of my old closet. "This is beautiful," she said. "Why haven't I seen you wear it?" "Richard said it made me look like I was trying too hard." "Richard's an idiot. You're wearing this tomorrow. We're going shopping and you're getting a whole new wardrobe. Bright colors, bold choices, everything he wouldn't let you wear." "I can't afford that right now." "Yes, you can. You have that trust fund. And besides, this is an investment in yourself. You're allowed to spend money on your own happiness." The concept felt foreign but also thrilling. That evening, I finally listened to one of Richard's voicemails. His voice was tight with controlled anger. "Lydia, this is childish. You can't just leave without discussing things. We need to talk about this like reasonable adults. Call me back immediately." Reasonable adults. As if he had been reasonable when planning to dispose of me in secret. I deleted the message and blocked his email too. Friday, Brenda took me shopping. We went to stores I had never been allowed to enter, places with young, trendy clothes and vibrant colors. I tried on a red dress and almost cried at how different I looked. "You look alive," Brenda said, standing behind me in the dressing room mirror. "That's what's different. You look like yourself again." I bought the red dress, along with blue jeans, a yellow blouse, a purple sweater and green sneakers. Colors that would have horrified Richard. Colors that made me feel like a person instead of a shadow. "Now we get your hair done," Brenda announced. "What's wrong with my hair?" "Nothing's wrong with it. But when's the last time you chose your own hairstyle?" I thought about it. Richard had always preferred my hair long and straight. Simple and conservative. "Never," I admitted. At the salon I asked for a change. The stylist cut several inches off and added layers that framed my face. When she finished, I looked younger somehow. Freer. That weekend passed in a blur of settling in. Patricia called with updates on the negotiation. Richard's attorney was pushing for a quick settlement, offering me a percentage of marital assets but far less than I deserved. "We're rejecting it," Patricia said firmly. "They're lowballing you. We have leverage and we're using it." "Won't that make things drag out longer?" "Possibly. Are you okay with that?" I thought about my apartment, my new clothes, my growing sense of self. "Yes. I want what's fair." "Good. Because you deserve fair." Monday morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I enrolled in a class. Business Basics at the community college. The semester had already started, but they let me join late. The classroom was full of people of all ages, all there to learn. The instructor, Professor Rachel Kim, was a dynamic woman in her 50s who made accounting sound exciting. "Business ownership is about more than numbers," she told the class. "It's about independence and creating value and making your own decisions." Making your own decisions. What a concept. After class, another student approached me. He was maybe 40, with kind eyes and an easy smile. "I'm Timothy Grant. I noticed you're new." "Lydia Collins." "Yes, I just enrolled." "Well, welcome. This class is great. Professor Kim really knows her stuff. If you need help catching up, I'm happy to share notes." "Thank you. That's really kind." "No problem. Where are you from? I mean, are you local?" We talked for a few minutes. Timothy was recently laid off from his corporate job and trying to start his own consulting business. He was nervous but excited about the change. "Starting over is scary," he said. "But also kind of amazing, you know?" "I do know," I replied. "I'm starting over too." Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. I went to class twice a week. I met with Patricia to discuss the divorce proceedings. I spent time with Brenda, rediscovering friendship. I explored my neighborhood, finding coffee shops and parks and bookstores. Slowly, I was building a life. Richard tried calling from different numbers, but I never answered. He showed up at my apartment building once, but the security door stopped him and I refused to buzz him in. Eventually, he gave up on direct contact and everything went through the attorneys. Patricia kept me updated. "We're making progress. They've increased their offer significantly. We're getting closer to what you actually deserve." "How much longer?" "Hard to say. Could be weeks, could be months. Divorces take time." "I'm okay with time. I'm not in a hurry to close this chapter. I'm busy writing a new one." Patricia laughed. "That's the spirit." 6 weeks after I left, I got a message from Isabella Rodriguez, the realtor from the condo viewing. It was brief and formal. "Miss Collins, I wanted to reach out and apologize for my part in what happened. I should have warned you about what your husband was planning. I was unprofessional and I'm sorry. I hope you're doing well." I read the message twice then wrote back. "Thank you for the apology. I'm doing better than well. I'm doing great." And I had money in the bank from my grandmother's trust. I had an apartment I loved. I had friends again. I was learning about business and starting to think about what I might want to do for work. Most importantly, I had myself back. One evening, sitting on my small couch with tea and a book, I thought about that day at the condo. About hearing Richard speak about me like I was disposable. About the shock and pain of that moment. That moment had been terrible. But it had also been a gift. It had shown me the truth. It had given me the push I needed to save myself. Gracias, abuela, I whispered into the quiet. You taught me well. My grandmother had survived and built a life from nothing. She had raised children and created stability and never let anyone make her small. I was her granddaughter. I had that strength in my blood. And I was just getting started. 2 months after I left, the divorce was still grinding through the legal system. But I wasn't grinding. I was growing. I had settled into my classes at the community college. Business basics turned out to be fascinating. Professor Kim taught us about profit margins and marketing strategies and customer acquisition. But more than that, she taught us about believing in ourselves. The biggest barrier to business ownership, she said in one lecture, is convincing yourself you're capable. The rest is just details. After class one Tuesday, Timothy caught up with me in the hallway. Hey, a few of us are going for coffee to discuss the marketing assignment. Want to join? Sure, I said. There were 4 of us at the coffee shop. Timothy, myself, and 2 other students. Angela Foster, a woman in her 30s hoping to open a bakery, and Nathan Brooks, a recent college graduate with dreams of starting a tech company. We talked about the assignment, but the conversation kept drifting to our personal dreams. What businesses we wanted to create. What success would look like. What about you, Lydia? Angela asked. What's your dream? I hesitated. I had been so focused on surviving that I hadn't let myself dream yet. I'm still figuring that out, I admitted. But I think it involves design. I used to love interior design before I got married. I gave it up because my husband said it wasn't practical. That's terrible, Nathan said. Design is incredibly practical. Everyone needs their spaces designed. You should pursue it, Timothy added. You have an eye for it. I can tell from the way you dress. Those colors look great on you. I glanced down at my purple sweater and blue jeans. Thanks. I only recently started choosing my own clothes. The table went quiet. Then Angela reached over and squeezed my hand. Good for you for getting out. That takes real courage. Over the next few weeks, that coffee group became a regular thing. The 4 of us met every Tuesday after class. We studied together, but we also supported each other. They became friends, real friends who saw me as a whole person. Meanwhile, Patricia kept me updated on the divorce. Richard had finally accepted that I wasn't coming back and that I had evidence of his plans. His anger had shifted to a cold determination to minimize what I would get. He's fighting everything, Patricia told me during one of our meetings. The house valuation, the investment accounts, even the furniture. But we're holding firm. We have the evidence and the law on our side. How much longer? We have a mediation scheduled for next month. If that doesn't work, we go to court. But I think he'll settle at mediation. He doesn't want this becoming public record. Why not? Because his business reputation matters to him. If it comes out in court that he tried to defraud his wife and hide assets, that could affect his professional relationships. He's motivated to settle quietly. That made sense. Richard had always cared deeply about appearances, about looking successful and trustworthy. Whatever happens, I'm okay, I told Patricia. I have enough from my grandmother's trust to be fine for now. Anything else is just extra. Don't sell yourself short, Lydia. You're entitled to half of everything you both built during 15 years of marriage. Don't let him make you feel grateful for crumbs. She was right. I kept having to remind myself that I deserved fairness, not just survival. In late October, 3 months after I left, something unexpected happened. Brenda called me one evening, excited. Okay, so I have a proposition for you, she said. What kind of proposition? My firm needs help with a project. One of our clients wants to redesign their office space, but we don't have interior design expertise in-house. I immediately thought of you. Brenda, I haven't done design work in years. So, you studied it in college. You have an eye for it. And this is a small project, perfect for getting your feet wet again. They're willing to pay $3,000. $3,000. For doing something I loved. Are you serious? Completely serious. Will you at least meet with the client? See if it's something you want to take on? I met with the client the following week. They ran a small law firm and wanted their office to feel more modern and welcoming. We talked about colors and layouts and furniture. I sketched some ideas while we talked, my hands moving almost automatically. "This is exactly what we're looking for," the managing partner said, looking at my sketches. "When can you start?" I started the next week. It was exhilarating and terrifying. I measured spaces, researched furniture options, created mood boards. I hadn't felt this energized about anything in years. Brenda checked in constantly. "How's it going? Are you having fun?" "I'm loving it," I admitted. "I forgot how much I enjoy this." "You're really good at it, you know. You should seriously consider making this a business." A business? My own business. The thought felt impossibly big. But Professor Kim's words echoed in my head. The biggest barrier is convincing yourself you're capable. Was I capable? Could I actually build something for myself? In November we had the divorce mediation. Patricia and I sat on one side of a conference table. Richard and his attorney, a stern man named Gregory Walsh, sat on the other. A mediator, an older woman named Sharon Foster, sat at the head. Richard looked older than I remembered. Tired. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Sharon explained the process. Each side would present their position. We would negotiate until we reached an agreement or declared an impasse. Richard's attorney went first, offering me 30% of marital assets. Given the prenuptial agreement and the fact that Mrs. Collins didn't contribute financially to the marriage, we believe this is generous. Patricia didn't even pause. "That's insulting. Texas is a community property state. Everything acquired during the marriage is jointly owned, regardless of who earned the income. Our position is 50%, as the law stipulates." "That's not realistic," Gregory argued. "It's exactly realistic. Would you like me to present our evidence of Mr. Collins's attempt to fraudulently conceal assets?" Richard shifted uncomfortably. Gregory glanced at him, then back at Patricia. "Perhaps we can find middle ground." We spent 4 hours negotiating. Breaks were called. Private caucuses were held. Numbers were written on whiteboards and crossed out and rewritten. Finally we reached an agreement. I would get 45% of marital assets, including my choice of keeping the house or taking cash equivalent. Richard would refinance to buy me out if I chose not to keep the house. All retirement accounts would be split. I would receive 2 years of spousal support while I established myself financially. It wasn't everything, but it was fair. More importantly, it was final. "Do you agree to these terms?" Sharon asked me. I looked at Richard across the table. He was staring at his hands, his jaw tight. This man who had controlled every aspect of my life for 15 years. This man who had planned to leave me with nothing. "Yes," I said firmly. "I agree." We signed papers. It was done. After months of fighting, the marriage was officially ending with terms that recognized my worth. Patricia and I walked out of the mediation together. "You did great in there," she said. "You stayed calm and clear. I'm proud of you. Thank you. For everything. I couldn't have done this without you. You're stronger than you think, Lydia. You're going to be just fine." That night, I sat in my apartment and processed what had happened. I was almost divorced. Soon I would have a significant amount of money. I could do anything I wanted with my life. The weight of possibility was overwhelming. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had friends. I had skills I was redeveloping. I had options. I called Brenda. "It's done. We settled." "Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. How do you feel?" "Free. Scared. Excited. All of it at once." "That's normal. This is a huge life change. Want to come over? We can celebrate properly." I went to Brenda's apartment and she had already prepared a celebration. Cake, champagne, music. Her way of marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. "To Lydia," she toasted, raising her glass, "who walked away from a man who didn't deserve her and is building something amazing." "I haven't built anything yet," I protested. "You've built yourself back. That's everything." We stayed up late talking about the future. About the design project I was working on. About maybe starting a real business. About all the possibilities that lay ahead. When I finally went home to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not just free from Richard, but free to become whoever I wanted to be. The divorce would be final in a few weeks once the judge signed the paperwork. But emotionally, I was already gone. Already moving forward. Already becoming the woman my grandmother always believed I could be. December arrived with cold air and clear skies. I finished the law firm office redesign and they loved it. The managing partner referred me to 2 other businesses looking for design help. "You have a real talent for this," she told me when I delivered the final invoice. "You should make it official. Start a real business." Start a business. The idea had been growing in my mind for weeks. Professor Kim had been encouraging me too. The market is there, she said after class one evening. Small businesses and homeowners need design help but can't afford big firms. You could fill that gap. I met with Brenda to discuss it. We sat in a restaurant downtown, papers spread across the table between us. I've been thinking about it seriously, I told her. But I don't know if I'm ready. Why not? You've already done 3 projects. You're good at this. People want to hire you. But starting a business is huge. Licenses, insurance, marketing, taxes. It's overwhelming. Brenda leaned back in her chair. Okay, so here's an idea. What if we partnered? What do you mean? My firm handles marketing and branding. You handle design. We could create a joint service offering. You'd have support and resources while building your business. And I'd have a design partner to offer clients. The idea was brilliant and terrifying. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. But Lydia, don't let fear stop you. You've already done the hardest thing, which was leaving Richard. Building a business is nothing compared to that. That weekend, I worked on a business plan. Professor Kim had taught us the basics. Target market, services offered, pricing structure, financial projections. My target market was small businesses and residential clients who needed quality design at reasonable prices. Services would include space planning, color consultation, furniture selection, and full redesigns. Pricing would be project-based with clear scopes of work. I showed the plan to Timothy in class. He had started his consulting business and was already getting clients. This is solid, he said, reviewing my numbers. You should do this. And if you need help with the business registration and setup, I can walk you through it. I just did all that. Really? Really? We entrepreneurs need to help each other. With Timothy's help, I registered my business in January. Collins Design Services. Simple, professional, mine. The divorce was finalized the same week. I received the settlement check and signed the final papers. Richard sent a brief email through his attorney. Best wishes for your future. Cold and formal, just like him. I deleted it and didn't respond. I used part of the settlement money to invest in my business. I hired a website designer. I created business cards and marketing materials with Brenda's help. I bought professional design software. And then I started telling people I was officially in business. The first few months were slow. I got small projects through referrals from the law firm and from Brenda's firm. A home office redesign here. A retail space refresh there. Each project built my confidence in my portfolio. In March, I got my first big project. A boutique hotel wanted to redesign their lobby and 10 guest rooms. The budget was significant, the timeline was tight, and I was nervous. You can do this, Brenda assured me when I called her panicking. You've already proven yourself. Just do what you do. I threw myself into the project. I created mood boards and renderings. I sourced furniture and fabrics. I managed contractors and timelines. It was exhausting and exhilarating. The hotel owner was thrilled with the results. You've transformed this space, she said at the final walkthrough. Our guests are going to love it. She paid my invoice promptly and referred me to 3 other hotel owners in her network. Suddenly, I had more work than I could handle alone. That's when Brenda made another proposition. My firm wants to officially partner with you. Bring you on as our design consultant. You'd work on all our clients who need design services. Steady income, built-in client base, and you'd still own your own business and take outside clients too. It was perfect. Exactly what I needed to scale up without losing my independence. We signed an agreement in April. I was now the official design partner for Brenda's marketing firm. Look at you, Brenda said as we celebrated with dinner. 6 months ago you were terrified to leave your marriage. Now you're a business owner with a partnership agreement. I still can't quite believe it, I admitted. Believe it? You did this. You built this. That spring was busy but good. I worked on hotel redesigns, office spaces, and several residential projects. I hired an assistant, a recent design school graduate named Sophie Chen who brought fresh ideas and energy. Professor Kim asked me to come speak to her class about starting a business. I stood in front of 30 students and told my story. Not all of it, just the relevant parts. How I had gone back to school. How I had taken a chance on a small project. How I had built something from nothing. The scariest part is starting, I told them. But once you take that first step, the next steps get easier. You just have to believe you're capable. After the talk, several students came up to ask questions. One woman, probably in her 40s, lingered until everyone else left. Thank you for sharing your story, she said quietly. I'm in a situation like you were. I've been married 20 years and I'm invisible. Hearing that you got out and built something gives me hope. I took her hand. You can do it too. It's scary, but you're stronger than you think. And there are people who will help you. How did you know when it was time to leave? When I realized I was more afraid of staying than of leaving. When I understood that being alone was better than being invisible. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Really. As summer approached, I moved to a bigger apartment. 2 bedrooms so I could have a home office. Bright and full of light, decorated exactly how I wanted. Blue walls in the living room. Yellow curtains. Plants everywhere. I hung my grandmother's photograph in the hallway. Every time I walked past it, I said thank you. For the trust fund. For the lessons. For showing me what strength looked like. One evening in June, almost a year after I left Richard, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset. My business was thriving. My friendships were strong. My life was full of color and purpose. Timothy called. We had become good friends over the months. Hey, a group of us from class are having a barbecue this weekend. Want to come? Definitely. Great. Oh, and fair warning, I'm setting you up with my friend from work. He's a good guy, recently divorced, thinks you sound interesting. Timothy, I don't know if I'm ready to date. No pressure. Just come meet people and have fun. If you connect with him, great. If not, that's fine too. I thought about it after we hung up. Dating. Relationships. Trusting someone again. The idea was terrifying. But also maybe possible. Someday. Not now though. Now I was busy being myself. Busy building my life. Busy discovering who I was when no one was controlling me. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The barbecue was at Timothy's house, a cozy place with a big backyard. I arrived with a bottle of wine and my nerves carefully tucked away. Angela and Nathan were already there, along with several other people from our business classes. Timothy introduced me around, including to his friend from work. Lydia, this is James Morgan. James, Lydia Collins. James was tall with brown hair graying at the temples, wearing jeans and a casual blue shirt. He had an easy smile and kind eyes. Nice to meet you, he said, shaking my hand. Timothy tells me you run a design business. I do. Started it about 6 months ago. That's impressive. I'm in software development, much more boring. I doubt that's boring. We talked for a while along with the group. The conversation was light and comfortable. James was funny and smart but not pushy. When I stepped away to get more food, he didn't follow. When I rejoined the conversation, he included me without monopolizing my attention. Later, as the sun was setting and people were playing music, James approached me again. Can I ask you something personal? He said. Depends on how personal. Timothy mentioned you recently got divorced. I'm divorced too, about a year now. It's hard, isn't it? Rebuilding. It is, I agreed. But also necessary. Absolutely. I was married for 12 years to someone who I thought was my best friend. Turns out she was cheating for the last 3 years. It destroyed my ability to trust for a while. I'm sorry. That's terrible. Thanks. But I'm working through it. Therapy helps. So does focusing on work and friends. And sometimes talking to someone who gets it helps too. I appreciated his honesty. My ex-husband was planning to divorce me and leave me with nothing. I only found out by accident. That destroyed my trust too. Then we're both recovering trust casualties, James said with a slight smile. Maybe that means we can be friends who understand each other. Friends. Not a date, not pressure, just friendship. I could do that. I'd like that, I said. We exchanged numbers before I left that night. No promises, no expectations, just 2 people who understood what it meant to start over. Over the next few weeks, James and I texted occasionally. Casual messages about work or funny things that happened. No pressure, no romance, just connection. Meanwhile, my business continued growing. I was working on 3 major projects simultaneously. A restaurant redesign, a boutique hotel refresh, and a residential project for a wealthy couple renovating their home. The residential project was the most challenging. The clients, Robert and Helen Patterson, had strong opinions and kept changing their minds. Every decision took 3 meetings. Every color choice sparked debate. I'm not sure I can work with them anymore, I told Brenda over coffee one afternoon. They're exhausting. Can you afford to walk away from the project? Financially? Yes. But it's not good business to quit on clients. It's also not good business to let clients abuse you. Remember what you learned about setting boundaries? That applies to business too. She was right. I had worked hard to establish boundaries in my personal life. I needed to do the same professionally. At the next meeting with the Pattersons, they changed their minds again about the living room design. For the fourth time. I understand you're exploring options, I said carefully. But we're now significantly over timeline and budget. I need a final decision by next week, or I'll have to charge additional fees for the revisions. Robert looked surprised. We're the clients. We should be able to change our minds. You absolutely can. But my time and expertise have value. Unlimited revisions aren't part of our agreement. I'm happy to continue working with you, but I need clear decisions and respect for the scope of work we agreed to. There was a tense silence. Then Helen nodded. You're right. We've been indecisive. We'll make final decisions by next week. After the meeting, I felt proud. I had stood up for myself professionally without being rude or aggressive. I had simply stated my boundaries clearly. The Pattersons did make final decisions the following week. The project moved forward smoothly after that, and they were thrilled with the final results. You were right to push back on us, Helen said during the final walkthrough. We needed that structure. And the end result is better because you kept us focused. In August, something unexpected happened. Isabella Rodriguez, the realtor from that life-changing condo viewing, reached out again. Miss Collins, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I have clients looking for a designer. Would you be interested in meeting with them? I'd love to refer your business. I thought about it. Isabella had been part of that terrible day, but she had also apologized sincerely. And she was offering me business. I appreciate the referral, I wrote back. I'd be happy to meet with your clients. The clients were lovely and the project was straightforward. Isabella was professional and helpful throughout. When the project was done, she sent me a thank you note. I'm glad we could work together, she wrote. I hope you're doing well in your new life. I wrote back briefly. I am. Thank you for the opportunity. It felt good to respond with grace instead of anger. Not forgiveness exactly, but moving forward without carrying bitterness. September brought my 1-year anniversary of leaving Richard. I marked it quietly, having dinner with Brenda. 1 year, she said, raising her glass. How does it feel? Surreal. Like that was someone else's life. In a way it was. You're completely different now. She was right. The woman who had stood in that condo listening to her husband plan her disposal felt like a stranger. I was stronger now, clearer, more certain of my worth. Thank you for being there through all of it, I told Brenda. I couldn't have done this without you. You could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to. That fall, I was approached by a reporter from a local business magazine. They were doing a feature on women entrepreneurs and wanted to include me. I don't know, I told Brenda. I'm not sure I want that attention. Why not? You've built something impressive. You should be proud. What if Richard sees it? So what if he does? You're not hiding. You're succeeding. Let him see what you built without him. I agreed to the interview. The reporter, a woman named Christine Lopez, was thoughtful and asked good questions about my business journey. I told her about starting over, about following a passion, about building something meaningful. The article came out in October with a photograph of me in my office, wearing a green dress and smiling. The headline read, From Starting Over to Starting Strong, Local Designer Builds Business from Scratch. I got dozens of messages after the article published. Other women sharing their own stories of leaving difficult situations and rebuilding. Potential clients reaching out. Even a few speaking opportunities. One message was from Richard. A brief email, saw your article. Glad you're doing well. I deleted it without responding. His opinion no longer mattered. James called that evening. We had been talking more frequently, still as friends but with growing warmth. I saw your article, he said. You didn't tell me you were basically famous now. I laughed. Hardly famous. Just a small local article. It's still impressive. I'm proud of you. Want to celebrate? Dinner this weekend? Like a date? I asked carefully. If you want it to be. Or just friends having dinner. Whatever you're comfortable with. I thought about it. A year ago I would have been terrified. But now I felt ready to try. A date sounds nice, I said. Yeah. We went to dinner Saturday at a small Italian restaurant. James was nervous, which was endearing. We talked about everything, our businesses, our pasts, our hopes for the future. I'm not looking for anything serious right away, I told him honestly. I'm still figuring out who I am on my own. That's completely fair. I'm not in a rush either. But I like spending time with you. Can we just see where it goes? I'd like that. At the end of the night, he walked me to my car. Can I see you again? Yes. Good. He smiled, then hesitated. Can I kiss you? The question, not the assumption. The request for permission. It made all the difference. Yes, I said again. The kiss was sweet and gentle and full of possibility. Not a fairy tale ending but a hopeful beginning. As I drove home, I thought about everything that had changed in a year. The woman I had become. The life I had built. The future I was creating. Richard had tried to dispose of me like I was worthless. Instead, I had discovered my worth on my own. And that was the greatest victory of all. December came around again, marking nearly a year and a half since I walked away from my old life. My business had grown beyond anything I imagined. Collins Design Services now employed 3 people. Sophie, who had been with me since the beginning, and 2 new designers I hired in the fall. We moved into a small office space downtown, a bright room with large windows and our work displayed on the walls. Every morning I walked in and felt a surge of pride. This was mine. I built this. The relationship with James developed slowly, which was exactly what I needed. We saw each other once or twice a week, maintaining our own lives while exploring connection. He was patient and kind, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. "You seem happy," Brenda observed one evening over dinner. "Like really genuinely happy." "I am. Is that weird?" "Not even a little bit. It's wonderful." My business had 5 major projects lined up for the new year. 2 hotels, a restaurant chain expansion, and 2 high-end residential renovations. I had become known for creating spaces that felt both beautiful and functional, elegant without being cold. In January I got an unexpected call. The voice on the other end was hesitant. "Miss Collins? This is Carol Bennett. I was at Professor Kim's class when you spoke last year. You said if anyone needed advice about starting over, we could reach out." "Of course. What can I do for you?" "I left my husband 3 months ago. It's been really hard. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I remembered what you said about following what you loved. Can we maybe have coffee? I could use some guidance." We met the following week. Carol was in her 40s, nervous but determined. She told me about her 20-year marriage to a controlling man, about finally finding the courage to leave, about feeling lost but hopeful. "How did you know what to do?" she asked. "How did you figure out your next steps?" "Honestly, I took it one day at a time. I focused on small goals. Get an apartment. Take a class. Do one project. Each small step built confidence for the next step." "Do you ever regret leaving? Even on hard days?" "Never. Not once. Hard days running my own life are better than easy days living someone else's version of what my life should be." Carol nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." As she left, I thought about how far I'd come. From the woman who couldn't make any decisions to someone other women came to for advice. The transformation felt impossible and completely natural at the same time. In February, I got a message from an unexpected source. Jerome Washington, the trust administrator who had helped me access my grandmother's money. "Miss Collins, I wanted to let you know that your grandmother left detailed journals that are now available to you. She wrote extensively about her life and her hopes for you. If you'd like copies, I can send them." I requested the journals immediately. When they arrived, I spent an entire weekend reading them. Page after page of my grandmother's thoughts, her struggles, her victories, her love for me. One entry dated 10 years ago made me cry. "My Lydia is so bright and full of life. But I worry about her husband. He dims her light. He makes her small. I pray she finds the strength to leave before she disappears completely. I'm setting up the trust to give her options. Money is freedom, Mija. Never forget that." She had known. She had seen what I couldn't see at the time. And she had given me the tools to save myself. "Thank you, Abuela," I whispered, holding the journals close. "You saved my life." In March, I spoke at a women's business conference. 200 women in the audience, all building businesses or dreaming about it. I told my story honestly. The control, the escape, the fear, the triumph. "You don't need permission to change your life," I told them. "You don't need perfect circumstances or unlimited resources. You just need courage and the willingness to take the first step. The rest will unfold as you go." The standing ovation surprised me. Afterward, dozens of women came up to share their stories, to ask for advice, to simply say thank you. "You inspired me," one woman said, clasping my hands. "I've been thinking about leaving my job and starting my own firm. Hearing your story made me realize I can actually do it." "You can," I told her firmly. "You absolutely can." That evening, James took me to dinner to celebrate the talk. We had been dating for 6 months now, taking things slow but steady. "I'm proud of you," he said over dinner. "You're changing lives. Do you realize that? I'm just sharing what happened to me. That's exactly why it matters. You're proof that starting over is possible. That you can build something beautiful from broken pieces. In April, something full circle happened. I got a call from a potential client. When she gave her name, I nearly dropped the phone. It was Richard's girlfriend. The other one, he had been planning to move into that condo with. Miss Collins? My name is Jennifer Walsh. I need a designer for a condo I'm buying and your work came highly recommended. Would you be available for a consultation? I sat in stunned silence for a moment. She didn't know who I was. But I knew exactly who she was. My first instinct was to refuse. To tell her I was booked. To avoid any connection to Richard's world. But then I thought about it differently. I had nothing to hide. Nothing to be ashamed of. I built a successful business. She was just a potential client. I'm available, I said. When would you like to meet? The consultation was professional and straightforward. Jennifer was nice enough, maybe 30, clearly unaware of the history. The condo was nice too. Not the one from that terrible viewing, but similar. As I took measurements and discussed design options, I felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no jealousy. Just professional focus. I think we can create something really beautiful here, I told her, sketching ideas. That sounds perfect. When can you start? I'll send you a proposal by end of week. I did the project. It was a job like any other. Jennifer was a good client, paid promptly, and left a positive review. I never told her who I was. It didn't matter. In May, on what would have been my 17th wedding anniversary, Brenda called. How are you doing today? I know this date might be hard. Actually, I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm grateful. Grateful? That it ended. That I got out. That I have this life now instead of that one. That's beautiful, Lydia. That's real healing right there. That evening, James came over with flowers. Not because of the anniversary, he didn't know about that, just because it was Tuesday and he thought of me. I was thinking, he said as we sat on my balcony watching the sunset. We've been taking things slow, which has been good. But I want you to know I'm serious about this. About us. Whenever you're ready for more, I'm here. I looked at him, this kind man who had become so important to me. I think I'm ready. Not to rush anything, but to move forward. Together. He smiled and took my hand. Together sounds perfect. In June, I celebrated my second anniversary of leaving Richard. This time with a party. I invited everyone who had been part of my journey. Brenda, Timothy, Angela, Nathan, Professor Kim, Patricia Holmes, Jerome Washington, Sophie and my other employees, James, and a dozen other friends I had made along the way. We gathered in my office space, which I had decorated for the occasion with blue and green streamers and a cake that said, 2 years of freedom. I want to thank all of you, I said, standing in the middle of the room surrounded by people I loved. 2 years ago, I left a marriage where I was invisible. I had no idea what I was doing or how I would survive. But you all helped me. You supported me, advised me,